It's that time again to do one of those Halo controversy videos. Let's see, what's the most prioritizing one we have on this list here, going down the list. It's probably going to be something like, you know, hit markers, or talking about button combos, and, it's armor lock. Armor lock. Armor lock?
What? What the fuck?
That's the first thing.
Are you fucking kidding me? No! 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 Not again. Stupid, stupid, stupid! No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No, 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 no!
No. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. 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 Hell no. 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 I refuse. No. No. Ah. 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 Oh my God. Stop.
Oh! Now you fucked up! Now you fucked up! Now you fucked up! You have fucked up now! Now you fucked up! 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 Now you have fucked up!
Oh god, no. Let's not cover that. I mean, that was a decade ago. Why are we covering armor lock now? That's over with. Halo Reach is... Oh, that's right. It's coming to the MCC. Well, looks like we're going to be covering this topic today.
Oh, shit!
Makes sense since, you know, the Halo MCC flight tests are going to be starting soon with Halo Reach, so I guess we're going to be covering this. Wow, I can't believe, you know, it's been almost a decade since this controversy first started when Halo Reach came out, and that we're actually doing a video on this. Talk about awakening the Super Saiyan T-bowing nightmare.
Prepare yourselves.
Today we are covering one of the oldest and most controversial topics in Halo. That's right, the armor ability that turned so many Halo fans against Bungie faster than Sprint or Bloom ever could. This armor ability was probably the most controversial thing that ever existed in Halo Reach out of everything else, and yet it is so meme-worthy today that people still make fun of this armor ability. This armor lock ability was an armor ability in Halo Reach that was so overpowered that it was very much despised by so many people that played Halo Reach, and it just had no drawbacks to it almost. For example, if you use like the sprint armor ability, you couldn't shoot, you could get shot at, and people could hear you running and, you know, breathing really hard, which is kind of weird for Spartans to be making that breathing sound while running in their suits, and yeah, people could hear them. If you could, you know, other ones like the camouflage ability made the user that was using it go deaf, and it notified all the enemies around you that you were using camo nearby because they would have a radar jammer, which in my opinion at that point that camo gave away your position more often than it helped you hide from the enemy, because it's pretty easy to find out where they were. You just had to look for the center of the radar jammer. You could also, you know, couldn't move as fast. If you did, the camo would kind of like wear off, and you know, if you were like full on like walking or at the running speed, it would actually be like half camouflaged. So yeah, it wasn't always that great. And then, you know, then you got like, for example, jetpack. Even though people have complaints about that, it still gave away your position. It was loud, like a loud noise that gave off your position, so everyone knew where you were, and you were an easy target to shoot at midair. And lastly, there's evade, which also made it so that you couldn't shoot anyone, but they could shoot you when you were trying to evade. But armor lock really just had no drawbacks. Some of these armor abilities were also despised in their own way, but I might do a video to cover it in general, but you know, collectively all the other armor abilities. But today we're going to be covering the dreaded armor lock. Armor lock was the ability to go into a kneel stance, and you were basically immune to any form of damage during that period as long as you were using that ability. On top of that, you could also use an EMP ability that built up so that anyone that was waiting for to try and assassinate you when you came out of armor lock, you could just EMP them, and then you could go for an easy one-hit melee if you wanted to. If anyone tried to splatter you, you could use the armor lock, and if you did it at the right time, you could not only deflect their splatter, you could kill them if they tried to splatter you. They usually, though, had to go about at like full speed for that to happen, though, too. And if a grenade landed on you or next to you, all you had to do was just go into an armor lock and you were immune to the damage. In fact, if you actually were stuck with a plasma grenade, you could just strip that right off when you went to armor lock and just peel it off and even deflect it right back at the user that did it to you. And you take no damage, and you kill the enemy that threw the plasma grenade at you. Even projectile weapons like the rocket launcher would bounce off and could be deflected back at the user, which basically was kind of a horrible way of just basically just making it so that you could just kill other people. So it could be used offensively as well as defensively. Even though it just looked like a defensive armor ability, it actually was also offensive as well. And it could be used also if you were getting attacked and you knew that you couldn't win, you could use armor lock and just recover your shields. By the time the armor lock time went away, your shields would have already been recharging. This made armor lock so ridiculously powerful that it broke the balance in gameplay. People defending the armor ability claimed that, oh, you could just wait for them to come out of armor lock, it's not that big of a deal. But the problem was that the other side of the argument people were saying was that what they're doing is they're hoping that someone else on their team will show up and save them while they're trying to recover, or hopefully they get their full shields back, so that way they can already go back to fighting the person again. And it unfortunately just delayed the engagements and the battles and made the fights take longer. But again, they were mostly hoping that someone would show up and save them, and that small chance that it might happen.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
And so basically with that, it just made it an unfair situation. Armor lock, though, had some, great moments. I won't deny that. It was really fun to use, in Forge and custom games. And there was this time where like you could make armor lock, make it completely last forever and immune. And then if you mix it with evade, you could do like a little Sonic the Hedgehog, and you could push your teammates and friends into like the walls and whatnot. And we were just doing that all the time. There was in fact, there's a cool game mode called cock blocking that basically you had to block your the players in a area, and if they got hit, they would die, and the infected would just use the armor lock to block people off. It was kind of like a little bit like of a Pac-Man situation, kind of, but except instead of like eating the person, like the ghost would try where the ghost would try to catch the Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man, instead you just blocked their route so they couldn't leave, so that way they end up getting killed. So it's kind of, there was some fun, game modes people had, but that, didn't mean that the community spent months and months completely just complaining to no extent about the armor ability until 343, finally took over, and when they took over, they nerfed it. Hell, they even had to have different playlists to keep everyone happy, with one playlist for matchmaking having the original vanilla style of Halo Reach, with there being a title update playlist to go along with it for nerfed Bloom and armor lock and several other tweaks to the game. So even though I was giving a lot of sides here about how bad it was, there were still people that defended this, still people that said this was there's even posts on this that said it was skill. So there was arguments back and forth. I mean, it went back and forth for ages, and people just fought forever saying like, oh, you must really suck if you don't know how to fight that person. In fact, there were some pretty funny arguments, you could hear when some people were like sitting there going, oh my god, it's so menacing, he's just standing there, what are you going to do about it? And so unfortunately it really split the community. It was something that slowly showed in the gaming community that you have to start testing your games. Before, you could just put games out and it was pretty easy to keep them balanced, but with so many more mechanics being put into games like FPS games and so many other factors and everything like that, that all it takes is one ability, one weapon, one gadget, one grenade, whatever it is, to completely destroy the complete balance or the meta or whatever you want to call it of the game, so that it takes away the competitiveness and also becomes something that's kind of just way too strong. Sometimes that actually made games really fun, but unfortunately in some other cases that actually broke the multiplayer. In this case, that's what ended up happening with Halo Reach. It just completely broke it with some people. In fact, I remember some of my friends saying that they just were done with Halo. They just they either went to play other games or they went back to play Halo 3. They did not like armor lock at all. That was one of their things. The biggest gripes was the armor ability that they added in the game. They just did not like it. So they ended up, nerfing the armor ability in a title update that made it so that anyone that stuck you with a plasma grenade, that it didn't peel off and it actually would kill you. So once you were stuck, it didn't matter if you used armor lock, you were dead. Weapons and grenades can even shorten the amount of time that you have to use armor lock. The more powerful the weapon, the more time that it eats up on your armor lock use. So like a Spartan laser has like an instant ability to remove your entire ability to use the armor lock. So if you went to armor lock and someone hits you with a Spartan laser, you instantly just pop right back out of it, and I think even die from it in most cases. They also even came out with an anniversary playlist that doesn't have any armor abilities, so that for people that just hated armor lock in general and other armor abilities could just avoid it entirely. Now, it's been 10 years, too late to kind of do a video on this now talking about the subject, but even though that's the case, they are, bringing it back to the Halo MCC, and with it, I've seen a load of funny memes come out talking about people both defending armor lock and also attacking armor lock because of how much controversy that was. Again, if you weren't someone that was back in the days of the Halo Reach, you just didn't play Halo Reach, you skipped it, or you're new to the Halo franchise, this armor ability was just so broken and so unliked. But, let's, talk about it as if in the terms of if it were to exist today, how could we have actually made it better in a way that it wasn't going to be so, broken the way it was designed? What could we have done to have fixed it if we could have, even though there's already a solution they're doing with 343 for Halo MCC when they bring it over. But I looked at it, and one of the best examples I actually saw actually existed in Halo 4. That, could have been the evolution of the armor lock if it had been done right, and that's the hard light shield. It only protected you from the front, and it still had many weaknesses, like you couldn't or is it like you could get splattered still by it. So it only protected you from like actual weapon projectiles. It did not protect you from vehicles splattering you. But in a way, I feel that armor lock was supposed to be able to protect you from vehicle splatters as well. So if they could have reinvent the armor lock, I would have maybe made it a forward shield that protected you against any damage coming from the front, but that you could would be stationary and stuck in that pose and couldn't move. So yeah, if you're stationary and you're stuck in that pose and you can't move while using the armor ability, you're exposed from all the other sides. This way, it has its own faults like the other armor abilities, but still can protect you from the same things that it used to be able to protect you against. But again, this is old news, since they've already made changes to Halo Reach 10 years ago. And with Halo Reach coming to the MCC, the developers of the 343 Industries, they've already said that most of the social playlists, most of the matchmaking is going to have the 343's title updated version for that, and there's also one matchmaking playlist that's going to have no armor abilities, and the only other modes that are going to have the vanilla version of armor lock is going to be things like Infection, Invasion, Custom Games, Forge, Firefight, Campaign, being the only ones that will have that everything else will be the nerf version. So armor lock in Halo Reach for MCC will be nerfed for the most part of the PvP matchmaking experience. But I did want to see, you know, from the community which version which version of armor locks they preferred. If they preferred, you know, the vanilla, the title update, or the anniversary. So I held a poll and just wanted to see, just for the fun of it. But, you know, it's kind of funny to think about how just broken that armor ability was, and how much, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, because I think, you know, if you call it PTSD, it's kind of like insensitive and whatnot to those that actually did have it. But people could call it, you know, gaming PTSD, because people would freak out every time they heard armor lock. They're like, oh my god. And I would hear, you know, funny jokes about people joking about that, like, hey, remember that time Agent Lock used armor lock on Lockout? And just, you know, that kind of sarcastic stuff. But yeah, even it's so funny because of how bad it was that people hated that armor. Like, out of all the things that were really controversial I knew about at the time that people disliked, people still hate armor lock far more than they hated the bolt shot in Halo 4. And if you knew the Halo 4 one, I did a video on that covering the bolt shot. That broke the balance of Halo 4's multiplayer, and that took forever to fix, and even to this day it's not even really fixed. But even then, armor lock was still more hated as of the thing that people claimed broke the matchmaking, and that was for Halo Reach. Anyways, you guys, I'll wrap up this video, but make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to hit the notification bells as well. Select and leave a comment down below of what your experience was with armor lock. If you enjoyed it, you didn't enjoy it. If, you know, you're like new to the series, you never actually experienced it, which if you have Halo MCC and you're going to be playing that Halo Reach multiplayer, you're going to experience it. Or if you're just like, you know, you didn't care, just, you know, tell me, let me know. Anyways, that's gonna be it. You all have a great day. Peace.
Drop the bass. One.